All right, the recording has started, and this is the June 8th, 2020 Crossplane community meeting. We are in the middle, or I guess towards the latter half of the 0.12 release cycle here. So let's do a check-in on that, since that'll be the next release. You know, we typically shoot for a monthly cadence around the middle of the month. So that's coming up next week or the week after. Ended this week or the week after. Let's check and see kind of what the status of some of the bigger feature areas and the investments that we're making for 0.12, and then we can talk a little bit more about how we want to hone in the targeted release date. So Nick started a project board for us at the organizational level. So something that's kind of tricky with bigger projects when you have multiple repositories is that, you know, when you keep the issues next to the code that they are pertinent to, you know, you have issues scattered across a lot of repositories in the organization. So Nick had the good idea to create a project board at the organizational level. And so you can add issues to this 0.12 focused project here. And, you know, get the status of them as they're going across the board in the typical Kanban style. So these are a set of issues that we're working on and tracking that we expect to be included in the 0.12 milestone or release. One thing that is good about, Harishi says that he's not able to get any audio. Is anybody else having audio issues? Okay. Yeah, maybe Harishi, check your settings to see if the audio output is to you know, your headphones or your external speakers, or if it's going to some other Bluetooth, you know, like a Bluetooth device that your family is listening to me drone on in the rest of the house, and you're not able to hear me. That could be one thing. Or quit the Zoom meeting and come back. That often has beneficial results. Okay, so yeah, so we're tracking issues for the 0.12 release on this board here. You know, we can add more issues to it that other folks are working on, or, you know, kind of discuss some of these, but this is kind of a good way to get a overall aggregated view of what we're working on in the scope of the 0.12 release.
Yeah, just to add a bit of context there as well, Jared, I know that while we are close, or about a week and a bit out from our usual deadline, we aim for around the 15th to release for 0.12. 0.11 was a pretty big release for us, and we are somewhat going back into a bit of a planning phase for what's going to happen in the next few releases and what the priorities are. So this board for 0.12 is a little tentative. It might change a little bit over the next week or two.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's something I was actually wanted to say I totally forgot about, is that's one of the beneficial things about monthly release cadence, is that, you know, things that, hey, this is things that we're aspirationally want to include in 0.12, but there's probably very few things that we would hold the release for. You know, if it's not ready, that's okay. It can pick up the next release in the next month, since, you know, there's release trains leaving every month. So, you know, we don't have to stress out too much to get everything included here. And this is giving a shape of the release, and over time it'll continue to get more accurate as status. We keep this board up to date. Status of the issues will remain updated. But yeah, if something is going to be included in 0.12, it could always pick up the next 0.13 release. So yeah, thanks for putting that together, Nick. That's definitely super useful. So I wanted to just do a high level check-in on some of the big features or areas of investment for 0.12. So one of them is, you know, code generation and in accelerating or expanding the surface area of managed resources that we support. Casey or Nick, do you want to give an update on that and that investment for this milestone? I don't know if Casey's on the call. It might be just you, Nick.
Yeah, I can give a quick update. In short, we've assessed a we have it with this bunch of documents floating around, but we haven't yet got any of them into a public pull request, which we need to do soon. We've assessed a few different potential ways to speed up the development of writing new managed resources or new providers entirely for Crossplane. We suspect the most promising one is going to be to take a look at building an abstraction layer for Terraform providers, or in some way reusing the existing code of Terraform providers. I'm not sure if it's going to be a perfect experience, so we may end up using that as a bootstrapping process if it's possible at all. Presumably it is, because other projects are built on top of Terraform. But we may use that as a bootstrapping process to effectively deliver hopefully a lot of support for a lot of different resources, but maybe they won't have all the features of a native Crossplane resource, or maybe they will. We're sort of doing R&D at the moment to figure out how this will work out. Another front that we're working on is sort of more of a pure code generation, so where we would just roughly take open API description of the API that we wanted to target and generate a lot of Crossplane's code from that. I am personally not sure that we'll ever be able to generate all of the code, the whole logic, but we could generate a lot of the boilerplate stuff to speed up the development process, because we've definitely found that it's very easy to miss things when creating types and just miss out on patterns and things like that we encourage. So sort of taking a bit of a two-pronged approach there. One, we're investigating building on top of Terraform, somewhat under the assumption that that won't be the, that we won't just build on Terraform forever. But again, we don't know yet. We need to learn a little bit more. And we're also generating code natively. We're investigating generating code for the current patterns that we use in Crossplane today.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you for giving that update on that one. Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see what we learn from that, and through the lens of how we can effectively and at quality increase the scope of supported resources in Crossplane. Okay, and then another area that was a huge part of the 0.11 release was infrastructure definition and composition and publishing your own infrastructure APIs, etc. Wafik, do you want to give us an update on the investments that we're going to make in 0.12 in that area?
Yeah, sure. So we have the default and enforced composition features that will make it to 0.12. There's a PR open. So this is basically in the infrastructure definition, you will be able to refer to a composition to be default in case there is no selector on the requirement or the composite resource. And also the enforced composition feature is that you can refer to a composition in the infrastructure definition, and Crossplane will make sure all instances will use that specific composition, which would enable, like you can, in this way, like you can create infrastructure definition and also the composition and enforce it. Then the resulting new CRD is essentially a managed resource without any selection or something. So that is, a new feature on top of, what we already thought with other ways of doing compositions like template stacks. And another effort that will probably make it to 0.12, but I am not 100% sure, because we want to migrate the sample stacks to composition, because right now they have the resource classes and claims, but this is dependent on the common set of infrastructure definitions to be installed with Crossplane together. Right now we have those common infrastructure definitions that replace the contemporary claims, but they're not installed by default, because it was pretty tricky to do it with the Helm. So we punted on that on 0.11. So if we can get that working, I think the migrating sample stacks would work well. And the reason that we need it is basically the WordPress app and also the with the composition, because like the number of layers are not, static. You can have like, 5 different layers, and then some managed resources, like most of them have a limit, but like some of them have really, short limit for the name. For example, GCP service account is like 30 characters maximum. So we were thinking about a solution, but we haven't really updated the discussion here yet. But I think that is probably something that we can make it to 0.12.
Cool, Muafik. And did you say that the standard infrastructure definitions for like the regular, like to essentially replace the common claims that we have right now, is that already in master, or that's still ongoing to have like infrastructure definitions for MySQL and Postgres and stuff?
So these are in master in a folder that you can just do a kubectl apply.
Oh, okay. But they don't get installed like when you install Crossplane itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to do that manual step. So I think we can still migrate the sample stacks without having that automated, but it won't be, much useful if you have the, WordPress flow automated somewhere. So I would prefer that we get those definitions pre-installed, so that users don't really have to care about them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Okay, thanks, Muafik, for that update on composition for 0.12. Yeah. On the 0.12 project board here too, we have a couple of in-flight designs and discussions that are going on for the OM support. Like for instance, resource dependency and versioning mechanism for OM as well. Does anyone on the call want to give a quick update on the status of those or other features that we might be investing in for OM implementation in Crossplane for 0.12, or does those speak for themselves?
Yeah, so I can add some few details
Cool.
about it. Yeah, so the first thing I think we may want to release make it part of the release is the reversion design for the components of OM. So the PR is already there. We add a link over there. Right, there's already a work in progress PR pull request to show the prototype of how it works. One small difference is we decide to use the controller reversion in this implementation because more lightweighted. So you guys can take a look on the implementation side.
And Harry, is that a pull request that's open in this repo here?
Yeah, you can see there's a work in progress.
This one here, the number 35.
Yeah. That's that part.
Got it. Let's let me grab on that there. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah,
Are there other updates you wanted to share? Okay, go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, the second issue is it's not very rushed. We just brought up this idea because we found a interesting fact inside Alibaba. So there are some teams they're trying to define their own workloads based on the, for example, Kubernetes building, Kubernetes default workloads, or based on some other project like OpenCruise. I don't know if you guys know about OpenCruise. It's more like the advanced version of Kubernetes workload controllers. So anyway, those teams are trying to define user-facing workloads based on those workloads. So it's not, so this process, like they separate fields from the existing workloads into two parts. The first part is just like very simple workload, like containerized workload, or it's maybe just as simple as a pod spec for developer-facing stuff. Then it separate all the other fields into, for example, traits or scopes or anything like that. So the idea is that they want to provide a very simple interface to their developers. And that actually remind us more like, so right now they're implementing operators for that. So there are controllers for workloads, there are controllers for traits. So this actually remind us to think about it's something like a pattern of decomposition. they're basically like divide or decompose a existing CRD into multiple smaller pieces. I don't know if it's a common pattern in the community. We're not very sure about that, but this do exist inside Alibaba. So we'd like to bring up this discussion with you guys to see what do you think about that.
And Harry, was that one captured in an issue already?
No, it just we just bring up this discussion very recently, like last week.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we can create an issue to describe some details about that, so you guys can leave comment on that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Right.
Cool. All right, thanks for sharing those updates, Harry. Okay, and then also webhooks and Crossplane. That's kind of been a.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
This is Arthur. So,
hey, Arthur.
I'd like you give it a shot on the application scope to see if we can fit in the next release.
For application scope?
Yes, at least the health scope. I think we had a discussion, I think 2 weeks ago about it.
Yeah, I can add that to the board. I haven't kept up with where it's at since 2 weeks ago, but I think if we do add it, I would prefer to add the, if I recall correctly, we have a targeted issue about the health scope specifically, so maybe we should add that one.
Yes, let's do health scope.
Sure.
Okay,
all right.
I can create it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Arthur.
Yeah, the one pager for webhooks. I think this probably won't make it to 0.12, but I will try to get something prototyped for at least like how it would look like. The idea here in this is that like maybe if we can integrate it well with the packages, then we can make sure just providers or like other packages that are installed with Crossplane can use the same TLS certificates and all that stuff, so that it's easier to write the webhooks when you target Crossplane CRDs and like CRDs in Crossplane ecosystem, basically.
Yeah, and I included a note to Moafik that that's going to, over time, become more important for being able to support CRD conversions. As we do release updates and need to do some sort of upgrade or migration, et cetera, for CRDs changing and getting new versions and everything. So conversion webhooks become more and more important.
Yeah, exactly.
And having a standard way to do that so that, everyone can take advantage of that with the easy framework is just all the better for the project and the ecosystem.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so exciting stuff in 0.12. This community and this team works pretty hard and continues making really cool investments to move the project in the feature set forward. So looking forward to 0.12. Does anyone have, let's go back real quick to targeting a date for feature freeze or the release, et cetera. So, we normally do middle of the month. So the middle of the month this time, exactly middle of the month is Monday, June 15th. It seems like there's a fair amount of stuff in flight, and I don't want to artificially, constrain us or, keep us put too much stress on us for a return that's not really worthwhile. So do folks have thoughts about does Wednesday the 17th sound like a good date to target for feature freeze, code freeze, or what are other people thinking?
I feel like release at end of next week sounds pretty reasonable. So maybe Wednesday would be a good day for code freeze.
Yeah, and then release by the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let's pencil that in, and we could be somewhat flexible, but that doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. The last release was fun, Dan. Separating up the divide and conquer approach for all the release steps and stuff like that. That was fun. Friends working together. Okay, cool. Let's move on then to the community topics. So first one we had here on the agenda is that I think 2 weeks ago, or almost 2 weeks ago, we had our Crossplane Community Day, which was really awesome. We had some fantastic speakers, from a lot of different projects and folks in the ecosystem. Kelsey Hightower's keynote was great. Everyone's participation was really good, and there were some really good and interesting concepts there. I now know what Amazon's CD Kates is, and I'm actually pretty stoked on it. That was a really cool demo for Ben. So yeah, this is a great all around. If you wanted to catch up with some more of the content there, I got a link to the live stream of tweets that we did. That was basically links and information about all of the content. And then the full 3-4 hour whatever recording is available now at this link. That does still require registration to get into that. But we partnered with Zoom to host the event for technical support and do everything. And that team is working through the post-processing now to splice up all the speakers, to remove dead air, to make sure the screen sharing and content is accurate and polished and everything like that. So the Zoom team is working on the post-processing, and when that is complete, then we'll be able to publish those more bite-sized, focused chunks of content, like each speaker, up to YouTube. So thank you for everyone's patience as we're waiting for that post-processing to get complete. But if you want the full recording, it's available at that link right now. So that was super fun, and I can't wait till the next one we do, because that was a fantastic day. Thanks for everyone's hard effort and work in there to make that happen. All right, so we normally do a little update on TBS episodes, but we made the decision to cancel last week's episode out of respect for the current social and political climate right now, at least in the States. So we will be returning to TBS episodes in the coming weeks, though. Update on the CNCF. We submitted an official proposal to the CNCF to donate Crossplane as a sandbox project. So there's a link here to the CNCF TOC pull request 454 that has the full proposal and all of the content here around why we think that Crossplane is well aligned with the CNCF and the project charter, mission, history, et cetera, and stats and all that. So that's available for full perusal, and hit these. You can add some little reactions and emotions or emoticons, emojis to it as well, if you want to. We also last week went ahead and presented to the special interest group for app delivery. Harry was so kind to invite us to come speak there and give us a venue to present. So there's a bunch of helpful links here in the agenda document for the slide deck that we presented to the SIG, and the meeting notes from the SIG as well as the video recording. So if you wanted to catch up with the presentation to the app delivery SIG, along with all the questions, Q&A session and everything that we did, there's just some easy links for that. So then the next phase of the CNCF submission process is we're in the SIG assessment phase here. So the app delivery, and which Harry is a chair of, will be going through the assessment process. That's sort of a lightweight pre-due diligence, and then they will make their recommendation to the technical oversight committee. So if there's anything that is needed from the project and maintainer team, the SIG will ask us for that, and we're happy to provide anything that's needed or clarify any questions or anything that comes up from the special interest group as needed. So just reach out to us, Harry, or since you know a lot about the project, you can answer those questions on your own if you have them.
Yeah, so I think the review has already started, and Alois will act as the contact person for Crossplane. So if you have any question regarding to the progress, you can ping Alois on the Slack directly, and he's very kind. And there's no lot of detail about the review, so I guess everything in CNCF is kind of slow. So I guess it just started. There's no very deep dive into the Crossplane project for now. But yeah, if you want to know more details, you may want to ping Alois. But I guess there's no lot of details for now.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good, Harry. And then yeah, we can, and we're available for anything too. If Alois needs anything, we're happy to jump in and get responses right away. So great. All right. Yeah, that was fun. There was that SIG, the app delivery SIG, is full of kind and nice people. So that was a fun experience going to talk to y'all. Okay, so I think that is the end of topics we had on the community topics section. There aren't any extra or additional PRs that people have added here. So before we advance into the optional deeper technical discussion section, did anybody else have agenda items to add that were not part of the doc?
Hey, Jared.
Hey, Slo.
Salil here. Yeah, so I'm so sorry to have missed earlier on adding some PRs from the provider AWS, but so we have a couple of PRs under provider AWS which like needs attention towards their reviewing and as such. And along with that, so for the services such as Route 53, SQS, and Certificate Manager and SNS, they should be ready for version 0.12, awaiting its review.
Awesome, great. Then yeah, that would. So are you're all of those PRs are just waiting for more feedback?
Yep.
Cool. We should have all of those currently assigned to a Crossplane maintainer. So each of us who've got a PR assigned will go through and have a look at those ASAP.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to like bring that in the light there.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I'm assigned to the SQS one personally, so I'll take a look at that this afternoon after a few of my meetings.
Cool. So that would be all from my end. Thank you for that.
Awesome, Salo. Thank you very much. Okay. If there aren't any further community or broad topics here, then we can move into the optional time here for to have deeper technical discussions. So any folks that want to drop off from the general call are more than welcome. And then Hashdan, you can have the floor here for your Crossplane packages refactor and update discussion.
Cool. Thanks, Jared. So this is, I didn't add a lot of information here because I think it's still pretty open-ended, honestly. But for any folks who have worked on, any of the providers or tried to write their own provider or their own stack or app or what have you, you've probably interacted with the packaging kind of format a little bit, and it might be a little confusing about what the different files are doing and kind of what's happening behind the scenes. But essentially the big picture is that Crossplane is opinionated about what types of things can be installed into the cluster. And the reasoning for that is so you don't stomp on existing CRDs, you don't, have containers running as root, you don't, basically violate any of these rules we have around things that can be installed. That being said, if you're not really familiar with how that works, you're kind of either confused about how to package something, or you're just kind of like accepting what the CLI is giving you and you don't really know how to modify it necessarily. And you also may not know how changes you make to that affect how things are going to run. So we're looking at this process and trying to examine, first of all, what are the main things we want to accomplish by having our own packaging? So obviously there are, various templating engines and packaging for Kubernetes manifests in the ecosystem, Helm, Customize, et cetera. When it boils down to it, pretty much everything we're installing is some CRDs and a controller or multiple controllers. And so, we do want to be opinionated in some ways about how those are installed. We'd also like to make the installation process easier, so we have some safeguards where you're not just having to Helm install things and hope it doesn't break anything, because there aren't really many safeguards around that. So basically, that's the general overview for this conversation. Where we want community feedback, obviously, because both contributors and users kind of have to interact with this in a variety of ways. So yeah, I guess I'd kind of open the floor to anyone who, first of all, has questions, and second of all, has opinions about what they'd like the experience to be, or if they think, there should be some sort of packaging or there shouldn't. I think anything's on the table for us to discuss here.
Yeah, and I think a note on that too is that I believe that the design doc for packages has stayed up to date as well. So it is a bit heavy in terms of the amount of content in here, and some of it is aspirational as well, not fully implemented. But the general gist of what files go into a package, like what is the format of it, what is the expectation for the content of those files, etc., is captured in this design document, so that it's not a completely in the dark format. That we've had this design document here that has the content but might not be necessarily easy to parse for folks that are new to the idea as well.
Yeah, another really important part of this is upgrade of controllers and CRDs. So that's pretty much the driving thing, I'd say. Maybe like permissioning is really important in terms of RBAC, that these things are given as well. But we haven't had an upgrade story. So basically on all of our release notes, it's like, yeah, we'd like to make it easy to upgrade to newer versions, but there isn't really a way right now. So like, good luck, or come ask us for help. And that's definitely not the user experience we want moving forward.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Artur.
Hi. Okay, so my question is this the proposal for packaging Crossplane, or is it also proposing a generic solution to package anything you want?
It would be a package. Well, that's kind of the second part of that's a little bit of an open question, but it would be packaging things installed by Crossplane, right? So Artur, I know you've had some interaction with installing the local OAM stuff via Helm chart versus with the remote installing it via an add-on, but basically just a specialized type of package. And there's like two different experiences there. One may be more familiar, one may be a little more streamlined. But yeah, it's talking about things that are installed by Crossplane, not packaging actually Crossplane itself.
Okay. So there is a standard called CNAB. Don't know if you guys have heard about it. And so have you guys considered using that? One of the implementations of CNAB.
I think we did assess it at some point, and I believe the reason we ended up going with our own packaging format was that it seemed that CNAB was quite broad in what it supported. If I recall correctly, I haven't personally deeply looked. I'm sort of just forwarding my understanding of this, but my understanding is that CNAB allows you to package basically anything using a CNI image, or sorry, using a Docker image basically to deliver things. So we were wondering if we could come up with something that was a little bit simpler if we focus specifically on only delivering Kubernetes controllers, CRDs, and potentially CRs.
Okay, I sent a link to a new implementation from CNAB called Porter, that you can invoke like Helm charts and templates, stuff like that. So maybe it's worth a shot, but it just feels like a very specific a very good use case to use that from looking at the high level.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of overlap between the two approaches, so we'd be happy to look at that.
So yeah, send a link in the chat room for Porter, which I think you might be able to use. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Arthur. One thing to note too is that this isn't as much a proposal as it is what's already out there for Crossplane. This is not fully implemented in terms of all the features are implemented, but this is exactly how in Crossplane how you install any provider, like provider Azure, provider AWS, any of the sample stacks, etc. Those are all using this packaging format, and the Crossplane CLI and stuff like that installs when you install packages. That's all what's currently running and already out there. So it's not as much of a proposal as what's currently in the ecosystem, and then how we can maybe improve that going forward as well.
Okay, so this is using the existing infrastructure to install everything that is like all the providers and everything for Crossplane.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. This is what's already running and built.
Okay. I think I use that. That's my understanding.
Yeah. If you install provider Azure, then you this is exactly what was going on under the covers there.
Okay. Thank you.
One aspect of the design here that's aspirational, that I think has a fair amount of value though, is this whole concept around like a CRD installations, where instead of saying, hey, I want the provider Azure package to be installed in running in my Crossplane control plane, you'd be able to say, I need this particular CRD, like I need the Cosmos DB CRD or something like that. And so you don't have to know where it lives or what package exists or what package that package depends on or anything. You just know that you have a need or a desire for creating Cosmos DB instances. And so specifying, I want Cosmos DB instances, give me the machinery, controllers, dependencies, et cetera, everything that's needed for my control plane to be able to provision and manage Cosmos DB instances. Then, this package fulfillment, dependency resolution, installation machinery would be able to handle that. So that's something that's not implemented right now, but from the very beginning of this design was part of the aspirational elements of it that I think has a lot of value. That's something that's interesting that I don't think, that sort of type resolution thing, I don't think exists in other tools in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think as was alluded to before, one of the big questions that we're trying to answer at the moment is what the scope of this packaging format is. I'm not sure. We're not sure yet whether we are getting into the game of general Kubernetes package management that you would use to, potentially other projects would start using this as a way to package themselves up and sort of support anything in Kubernetes, or whether this is going to be something that we scope more specifically to just extending Crossplane.
Yeah, and I think that and then the generic CRD resolver thing are a little bit at odds, right? Because to do this generic CRD resolution, you either have to and also support kind of like arbitrary workloads. You either have to have things packaged up in a way that declare their dependencies in a uniform way, or you have to do some sort of analysis of an arbitrary thing to determine where what CRDs it's introducing, which one it relies on, and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of conflict there, I think, between those two ideas. That might be an interesting thing to talk about further, probably in a different discussion than this one. But
and Dan, so is there when you added this to the agenda here, is there already a issue or design or anything written up that is capturing this that people can add more comments to or ask questions already?
So there are a whole handful of issues around individual pieces of the current packaging system that are more like, I want it to be able to update or, the install.yaml is dangerous or something like that. So there's a handful of those. I think after we have some additional conversations and determine if we either are just going to like keep the current thing and do some revisions or go down a new path. And I definitely think it would be appropriate to have a new issue that is like, you know, this is a direction going forward, kind of a meta issue and the steps we need to get there. And potentially even before that happens, like you said, opening a new issue that's like a community feedback issue. How do you want to install things? So there isn't one currently though.
Got it. And that could be an artifact of further discussions that we have, and be able to kind of have a idea about a direction and then open that up for specific feedback. That's often can help out to be more successful or productive, is instead of open-ended solicitation for feedback on something that people don't have a lot of experience with. If there's more of a concrete proposal that you can solicit feedback for, that people can weigh in on, they understand what is the scope here, what is the goals, what is some of the details about it, then that could be a good mechanism for soliciting feedback. Cool. Did anybody else want to share anything on this topic about packages? And Artur, I'll drop this link that you shared here. I'll go ahead and just drop it into the agenda document here so that we have this.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually planning on using that for my own setup here because it solves some of the problems I have when I'm doing the setup. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Artur. Okay. Cool. All right. If there aren't any more things to add on that topic, then I believe we've reached the end of the full extended overtime agenda. So yeah, then we could go ahead and adjourn for the week. Alrighty. Thanks everybody. Good to see everyone.
Well, thanks, Jared. See ya.
Yeah.